Make sure you subscribe because if I ever blow up, you'll be able to say you're an OG. A black YouTuber named Swooped made a video exposing her ex-friend Mikey, aka Glam&Gore, for microaggression, trash-talking big influencers behind their back, and more. She provided receipts, but before we dive in, I need to have a conversation with you guys about my perspective on a lot of this. Some people may be like, Lynn, you're not black enough to claim you're black, or talk about the situation like this, and to that I say BS. When I watched Swoop's video and she talked about how people were telling her to bleach her skin and shamed her for wearing her natural hair, I felt that. People have told me multiple times that I'd be way more beautiful if my skin was lighter and that my natural hair is ugly. No one's ever told me to go back to Africa, but I have been called the dirty N-word more than once. My race is very mixed. My Afro-Caribbean features come from my grandpa on my dad's side and my grandma on my mom's side. I can't exactly tell you what percentage black I am, but I have been discriminated against as if I'm black for most of my life, so I believe that I'm more than qualified to talk about this. It's sad that I have to assert that I'm qualified to talk about something instead of just being able to talk about it. Nowadays, you can't have an opinion on something that doesn't directly affect your racial group, gender, or sexuality. People are always saying, get out of black women's business, and I understand. Black women have been put down for years, and we're still being put down. However, we can't let this keep other people from expressing their opinions on whatever they want. Oh, but we're not limiting their freedom of speech, we're just giving them negative consequences for their words. By bashing having an opinion on something that doesn't directly affect your group on a mass scale, you're making it socially unacceptable. People tend not to want to go against social norms. Therefore, you're limiting freedom of speech through societal expectations. Don't get me wrong, it's cool to disagree and to say, hey, I think you're wrong and blah blah blah, but don't shut them down and tell them that they can't talk about something simply because it doesn't directly affect their group. Back to freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is the most important freedom. A society that has freedom of speech is a society that can think. Thinking is one of, if not the most valuable thing we have as human beings. If you don't think, then you're just a meat puppet. Telling people what they can and cannot express their opinion about limits their freedom of speech. Their ideas are never put out in the open and no one else can think about them. Plus, you can't objectively draw lines in speech. What I'm saying is that someone is going to say that they're offended by an idea and suppress it. This suppression is based on subjectivity, so people are just going to start suppressing everything they find offensive. Eventually, they'll run out of offensive things to call offensive and start calling the things that aren't offensive. Again though, everything is subjective, so we don't know which things are actually wrong to say. We just know that someone got offended. I don't think people should shame other people for sharing their opinions on stuff that doesn't directly affect them. With all that being said, let's talk about the tea and my opinions on this situation specifically. Let's start by saying that I disagree with some stuff Swoop said. That's right, she's the victim, but that doesn't mean I agree with everything she said. One of the things I disagree with that really stuck out to me was how she said that the BLM movement that happened after the death of George Floyd was the most important civil rights movement in history.
Do you really think you could ignore your one black friend during the pandemic, during the biggest civil rights movement known to mankind?
She said this like 3 times and it bothered me so much. What about the civil rights movement that started in the 40s and ended in the 60s? The movement that literally ended racial segregation. I thought I was the only one who noticed because no one was talking about it until I saw Keemstar notice too.
She made claims that she was living in the biggest civil rights movement in the history of the world multiple times.
And don't get me wrong, I disagree with almost everything Keemstar says, including the disgusting things he said in the same clip.
Another issue I have is she is super light-skinned. And I'm sorry, if I want to hear the black experience from someone, I want to hear from someone that is darker skinned.
But I do agree with him that her calling the civil rights movement that happened last summer the most important civil rights movement is incorrect. The second thing I disagree with that she said was that there's a wage gap.
Like, imagine a man telling a woman that she's likely only successful in business because it was handed to her, while knowing she's getting paid less and getting discriminated against because she's a woman.
The wage gap has been disproven over and over again, and yet people still believe that it exists. If there really is a wage gap, why don't companies just hire all female employees to cut costs? It's illegal to pay people less because of their gender. What happens is that women generally work less hours than men's. What happens is that women generally work less hours than men, and there's no paid maternity leave if a woman is having a baby. What also happens is that in some jobs you can negotiate your salary before you get hired, and men are better negotiators than women. So it's not that employers pay women less because they're women, it's just that men have been in the workforce for so long that they're more successful as negotiating to get a raise and can generally work more hours. Another thing I don't agree with is that she said that racism equals power plus prejudice. Racism
equals power plus prejudice.
Racism is prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against a person or people on the basis of their membership of a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized. Any race can be racist toward any other race. If the definition that said that you can't be racist unless you have power and are prejudiced were true, then that means that black people can never be racist, and that's not true. If you don't take it from me, take it from Miss Harriana Hook.
I want to know how I know how Hollywood's portrayal of Indian people affects people in real life. I have a personal story time that I am going to share with you guys. It was my physics class, and this was his first time ever in America, because the teaching rates weren't as high as they are over here in America, so he flew out here to America to teach us. But yes, he would be up on the in front of the board trying to teach us. Nobody would be paying attention. Everybody would be loud. I would sit there and try to pay attention to what was going on. I couldn't hear anything because everybody was just being so destructive. People in the class will always invite their friends to come into class as if this was like some study hall session, when it really was not. Like, this is school. He left the room for a minute, and then somebody went up, pulled up the grade book, and started adding in everybody's grades and whatnot. And I was just like, what part of that, what made y'all think that was cute? But he was trying to ask him a question. The dude was like, can you shut up? I can't understand your accent. It's getting on my nerves. And I was just like, and by the way, I just want to let y'all know that these were all black kids that were treating him this way.
Alright, now let's get into what this Mikey chick said, because it's really bad. When Swoop was opening up to her in a text message about her experience as a black creator, Mikey would be like, I suffer too and I'm white. Mikey, why? Your friend is trying to tell you that she's suffering because of how people have perceived people of her race for centuries. You're supposed to be listening, not waiting for your turn to talk about yourself. This isn't seminar, sweetheart. It's your friend looking for support. Why are you trying to one-up her suffering? Mikey also talked smack about James Charles and Jeffree Star, saying that their success was handed to them because they're not straight. She said that she deserves all the success that they're getting. It's just that she's being discriminated against. She's talking all the smack 2 days before her collab with James Charles came out on his channel, meaning that she was benefiting from what she labeled as handouts. Swoop said that she also gained 80k from a collab she had with Jeffree Star on his channel as well, so she got another piece of quote-unquote handouts again. Say all you want about James Charles and even Lord Voldemort, but they didn't get where they are because they're not straight. They actually worked to get there. Handouts can only get people so far. I actually think that handouts can be more detrimental than helpful, because when you hand someone something, they're just gonna come back to get more. They're not gonna do things for themselves. James Charles and Jeffree Star are not at the top because of handouts, sweetie. And she has the sheer audacity to say that they shouldn't be more successful than her. Like, frick, you're making so much money doing what you love and have so much influence, yet you're focusing on other people? How sad and pathetic. According to Mikey, the only reason minorities are successful is because they get handouts and the world is against white people. Swoop responded to this in her video by asking Mikey if she'd like to be black or a not straight man. If Mikey really thinks that her suffering as a white woman is greater than a black woman's suffering, then surely she'd love to be black. Surely she'd love to be told to bleach her skin, to be told that her hair is ugly and unprofessional, and generally being perceived as aggressive and loud. There was also an instance where Mikey copied a black creator's video idea and never credited him. Kenneth uploaded a video in which he was doing his makeup on a treadmill, and his video was the only video with that concept until Mikey came along. At first there was a chance it could have been a coincidence. They could have had the same idea, but then I read the messages that Swoop provided and Mikey described things in a way that makes it sound like she's lying. Like, she said she usually makes a Google search to check if anyone has done the video idea she plans to do. It's just that one time she didn't bother checking. What she said was wordy and defensive, and those two things always signal lying to me. Anyway, Kenneth reached out to her to see if she copied him, which is fair. His fans were saying, Kenneth, she copied your video idea, and he was just checking out what was up because this was very sus. His fans were saying, Kenneth, she copied your video idea, and he was just checking out what was up because this was very sus. His tweet was not aggressive, as you can see here, but Mikey for some reason told Swoop that he sounded aggressive and got all defensive about her video idea. I feel like Mikey was trying to get validation from her black friends so she wouldn't feel as bad for going off at a black creator for no reason, you know? It's like whenever someone says something racist and they get their black friend to back them up so they wouldn't look racist. I also think that the reason Mikey felt like she wasn't gonna get caught from stealing the makeup on a treadmill idea was because she stole it from a black creator with less subs than her. What does race have to do with this? Me. A lot. It's important to recognize that people steal ideas from black people all the time. Why do they do that? Well, one of the more obscure reasons is, I don't know what it's called or if it even has a name, but sometimes people who aren't oppressed wish that they were part of the group that has been very oppressed. I don't know what it is or why it happens, but it happens a lot. When this nameless phenomenon happens to people, they don't think about the hardships of being part of the group that's been historically oppressed. They just think about all the benefits they can get out of it or how cool it would be to be part of that group. Some people have used statements like, I wish I was black so I could rock cornrows, or I wish I was black so rhythm would come more naturally to me. Everybody would love to be black until they realize how difficult it is. The other less obscure reason people steal black people's ideas is because they know they can get away with it. Sure, steal from the black person. Who's gonna notice anyway? And if anyone does notice, you can just call them aggressive because LOL, they're black. Mikey also did a makeup tutorial of domestically hurt Rihanna and of a man that got brutally kicked off a plane, which shocked me. Mikey, how did you as an adult think that this was okay? Did you go, oh yeah, I could really see their pain when I drew this bruise? Ridiculous. As of 2 or 3 weeks ago, I don't know, Mikey apologized publicly and said that she was apologizing to people privately as well. I don't think she meant her public apology. She brings up how a lot of the texts lack context, as if context will make what she said look any better. Also, in her exposing Mikey video, Swooped spoke about how Mikey has apologized in public, only then to text her about how she doesn't understand why people want her to apologize. So of course I don't trust her apology. I highly recommend that you watch Swooped's video because there's a lot more I didn't cover. Anyway, that's it. Bye.